All right, so today I want to talk about the new Canon XF400, or the differences between the two cameras are pretty minor. The only difference is one has SDI out and the other doesn't. So the 405 has SDI out, which is capable of sending an HD 1920 by 1080 picture in 422 through that port, and the other one doesn't have that. So you would get the 405 if you were using it in some type of broadcast situation, where maybe you had it set up in a studio or something. It's going to be broadcast to TV and you need that 422 color. You would go with the 405. Otherwise, you could just stick with the 400. Now the prices are only $500 in difference. So one is $3,500 and the other is $3,000. So without the SDI port, $3,000. Now, I want to start off talking about the thing that matters most to me in most cameras, and that's pretty much the image sensor, right? It does come with the 1-inch sensor, which to me is, it's somewhat unique for a ENG style video camera to have a 1-inch sensor. Now they do exist already. There are some out there that have this, and there are some that have even bigger sensors in them. But for an ENG style camera with a fixed lens to have a 1-inch sensor, to me is a big deal, because it means you're going to get better low light performance, you're going to get a better image overall, and you may get a little shallow depth of field in there, because usually you have a very small sensor. It's usually ½ an inch, so it's hard to achieve shallow depth of field. With the 1-inch sensor, it is easier. I used to have a Sony CX900, which also has a 1-inch sensor in it, and it's also a fixed lens camera, and I found that getting a shallow depth of field was definitely possible and much more easier than using like a consumer brand camcorder. It's using a new digic 6 dual processor. Now, when I first saw this, I said, digic 6, that's old, isn't it? digic 6, I think that's like in my 70D or something. But this is not just a digic 6, it's a dual digic 6. I don't know what that's gonna do, but I know 2 is better than 1. Now, not only is this a 1-inch sensor, but I think it's like an 8.9 megapixel sensor that is capable of capturing 4K footage. So not only 4K, but 4K in 60p directly onto an SD card. That's a big deal. There are cameras out there now, we know this, that can do 4K. A lot of them don't do 60p though, especially to an SD card. There are some that will do 60p, but you gotta do it to an external recorder. So for this one to do it to an SD card is kind of a big deal, at least to me. Also, this thing comes with 120 frames per second in HD. So you can shoot basically super slow motion with this camera in HD. Of course, because it's a professional video camera, it has a dual card slot, which is also a big deal. So you can do a backup while you're shooting. So you can shoot to 2 cards simultaneously, or you can relay the cards and shoot to one, and then when it fills up, it automatically transfers to the second. But I like to always just shoot to 2 cards at the same time, so you have that peace of mind in knowing that if one of my cards fails, I got a backup. One of the biggest things, dual pixel autofocus. Now, I don't know how many people watching this video have actually used Canon cameras that have dual pixel autofocus, but I do. I have. I do have a Canon 70D, which has the dual pixel autofocus, and I can definitely tell you it works very, very well. The best focus I've ever seen in a camera, bar none. I mean, nothing really comes, well, I can't say nothing comes close to it, but it is definitely the best. It is very, very good autofocus. And not only do you have the dual pixel autofocus, but it also comes equipped with a touchscreen, so you can just kind of point on the screen to what areas you want to put in focus, and it's just going to go to those areas nice and just crispy smooth. And the nice thing about dual pixel autofocus is it really doesn't hunt, and that's the problem with a lot of these cameras. You might have a touchscreen and you might tap it, and it might go to that point where you want to focus, but then it hunts a little bit and it goes back and forth. So it finds the focus and it goes a little past it, and then it's like, oh, I'm past it, and then it goes back and it's like, oh, I passed it again, and then it finds it. That doesn't look good. So dual pixel autofocus is where it's at. So here's a big one to me also. They put the thought into the number of iris blades in the aperture. So now it has 9 blades. I don't know what the other cameras used to have. I'm sure it didn't have 9, maybe it had 6 or 7. But the more blades you have, the prettier your bokeh. So for the people that don't know, the bokeh is those out of focus parts of your video. So when you're focused on like my face and you got something far off in the background like a tree or these bricks if they were further behind me, it's how smooth is that focus going to look, and mainly with lights. So like if there were lights behind me and we were in a city and you got the lights from the buildings behind me, what's that going to look like? Because when you have a lot of blades in there, it makes it really pretty. And it has 3 stages of ND filters like most professional video cameras have, which to me is a huge deal. When you're trying to shoot events and you're going indoors to outdoors, having the ability to just flick an ND filter to make your light go down a few stops, the light coming in the camera go down a few stops, is a really big deal. It saves a lot of time than having to fool with your aperture settings and your ISO settings or your shutter speeds. Flicking a switch, way quicker. And of course, because this is a professional camera, it comes with it. Also, it's small. It's a smaller camera. It's lightweight. These are not big, like new style cameras that you hang on your shoulder. It's still a relatively small camera with a detachable top handle. So the top handle, of course, has all your audio inputs on it. So it has 2 audio inputs, XLR, of course, which is great. But then it's also a top handle with zoom controllers on it and a record button. These things I think sometimes people take for granted, but it's really nice having an easy way to grab and carry your camera. And also you can use that to get lower angle shots. It also has built-in Wi-Fi, so you can control it with a Canon app from your phone. This camera also comes with a pretty good fixed lens. Now I know some people don't really like fixed lenses on their cameras, and it has a 15 times zoom on it. So basically the zoom is, I believe, what is it, 28? I think it's 28 to like 382, if I'm not mistaken. That's a pretty deep zoom range. So that's gonna cover you basically for everything. So you can go pretty wide with it, and you can zoom in really, really close with it. And then if you're shooting in HD, it basically does what my JVC LS300 does. It kind of crops down on the sensor so that you can get extended zoom without really losing image quality. I think all the way up to like 700 and something millimeters. I mean, that's ridiculous. So if you shoot in HD, you got tons of zoom. And also, of course, because this is a camcorder, there are definitely buttons on there. So there's buttons to get to things quickly. You know, there's a button for your ND filter. There's also an additional 5 programmable buttons that you can program to whatever you want. So that's always nice to have because it makes you faster when you're doing event work. Anyway, there it is. So that's the new camera coming out. Now my thoughts on it, personally, I really want to use it. I mean, it sounds really good. I really want to see what that 1-inch sensor can do. I mean, currently, as you guys know, if you watch my channel, you know I'm shooting with the JVC LS300. I also have a Canon 70D, and I also have a Panasonic GH4. And that's what I'm shooting with right now, is the GH4 with the Sigma 17 to 50 2.8. All very good cameras. I really like my JVC though, the most, because it's a camcorder and I shoot video. So to have all those quick features on it, like I have a button for zebras, I have a button for peaking, I have a separate button for expanded focus, I have switches for ND filters. Well, it's not a switch, it's a knob. Got a knob for ND filters, I have switches for white balance, switches for gain. All these things make the camera very, very quick when you're shooting events. And that's what I shoot the most, so that's what I need. So something like this Canon XF400, I think would be very, very good for the work I do. If you're solely shooting commercials and films, then yeah, you probably need a cinema camera because you're probably going to want to change your lenses and do all this other stuff. But if not, and you're doing a lot of event stuff and corporate work where you're doing like promotional videos or even commercials, even like smaller local commercials. I think this camera would do very, very well in a lot of those situations. So I really want to use it. So when it comes out, I'm probably going to rent it. I have some late weddings coming up toward the end of this season in November and December. So it's supposed to come out in November, so I might be able to rent it and use it on some wedding gigs and really put it through its paces and see what it does. You know, that might be the thing that I start using the most, even over my JVC. I really like the JVC though, don't get me wrong, but still, sometimes that interchangeable lens thing can kind of slow you down. Not so much with the JVC because it has that prime zoom, but even still, it can slow you down a little bit at times. So there it is. If you found that to be helpful, you know, go ahead and like the video. Please comment on this. I'm just curious to see what you think about this particular camera. Do you think it's going to work for you? Do you just think it doesn't come with enough features? Just let me know. You know, I mean, different strokes for different folks. I'm just curious to see if people are excited about this. I mean, I'm very excited about it. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of people talking about it yet, but I think Canon put a lot of technology into this camera. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I guess I'll see you soon.